This is Robert Capuccio. Welcome to the Self-Help Antidote, a weekly dose of reason, perspective, and insight, where we challenge conventional thinking and explore authentic strategies and insights around personal transformation. Our commitment to you is to bring you some of the world's leading experts in the domains of fitness, wellness, coaching, and behavior change, separating fact from fallacy. Welcome, everybody, to Roll with the Punches and the Self-Help Antidote. I'm leading this episode. That's an inside joke between me and Tiff. See, before our episodes, me and Tiff always get into a little bit of a debate over who should open up the episode. And we always think it's a good idea that the other person will open the episode, and then the other person disagrees. But somebody has to win that argument. And today, Tiff was the winner. So hello, I am opening up this episode, and it's good to have you all here.
God, I love winning. I love winning so much, Bobby.
Yeah, that means by default, I have lost today. So you'll excuse me if I don't participate in your moment of gloating and glee.
Hey, my chosen sport was one where you either win or you come last. There is no second place.
That's why they should have group boxing matches. It's kind of like... It's kind of like an elimination match. 10 people enter, one person leaves.
Yeah. I'd be down with that.
Didn't they have something like that? I'm amazed they don't have something like that.
I'm thinking is it in boxing or is it another combat sport? But there's like a where they have somebody who fights several people. I'm sure of it. I don't know. Probably making things up now.
They should combine sports.
I think they do that, hey? Mixed martial arts.
There was a movie about, like, I think combining baseball and basketball or something like that.
What?
Yeah, I don't think it was a martial arts. That would be amazing.
Well, combine baseball and
combine
basketball.
Cricket and martial arts and footy.
Contact sport with cricket bats. Cool.
So like the midfielder gets into a death match with the defender. Oh, that's amazing. That is absolutely, that would be, and then somebody comes along and hits them both with a cricket bat and then pitches the ball to the goalie. I'm not really sure how this will work, but it would be an intense sport.
Yeah. Well, you go workshop that and maybe we'll launch a new sport.
Brilliant. Okay, yeah. So that wraps this episode. Thank you.
It's in line with what you wanted to talk about, though, because you might be the subject. You might be the subject of the episode.
Actually, I've earned that. But then how would I even know?
Yeah, well, you wouldn't. Well, that's what we're going to unpack right now.
But to be fair, I mean, I get plenty of critical feedback, so I do know that I say stupid things just about every episode. I think some listeners are disappointed when I don't. It's like, I think he's losing his touch.
Tell everyone what we're talking about now. They're like, what? We don't get it.
I always see, I have no discipline on social media, which is why I avoid it. And it was like, so there was someone who was demonstrating a bicep curl, which, wow, imagine seeing that on social media. But it was a pretty decent bicep curl. And somebody writes in, well, for a guy his size, he's not lifting that much load, is he? And I'm just like, but one of the only true hinge joints doing single isolated elbow flexion, trying to target elbow flexors. In this case, you're probably thinking bicep, which is a fusiform muscle. So it's got a longitudinal, almost kind of a straight fiber direction. How much load do you actually need? Because I see a lot of people using a lot of load in the gym. And yeah, okay, they're doing resisted elbow flexion, but they're also doing shoulder flexion, and they're doing hyperextensions. They're doing back extensions, and they're not directly opposing the direction of resistance, are they? So what exercise are you doing? And these are the same people that put down total body exercises. Well, guess what? Your isolated exercises are kind of total body.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're kind of sending mixed messages there. So I'm not combative. I just, given the structure of the muscle and the joint, and he writes back, You're nowhere near big enough to be talking all of that mental stuff. Like mental stuff. Is that your word for science, mental stuff? Or do I just sound like I'm absolutely mental because of the stuff that I'm talking about? And then I was about to respond with a couple of, I was like, no. Now, the fact that his response to a biomechanical discussion is, well, yeah, like, how much do you bench? This person doesn't have the reference point to engage in this conversation. It's going to just be an exchange of a series of ad hominems back and forth, and it's just going to devolve into, I think I'm going to be stupider at the end of this conversation than I was when I entered into it. It's not worth my time and energy. And it's kind of like, we've talked about this, the Dunning-Kruger effect, where the less expertise you have, the more you don't realize your level of ignorance because you don't have the reference point from which to form an accurate assessment of it.
100%. You know, there's been a couple of exercises I've been training with Harp's, been a couple of exercises in the gym where previously if I'd seen people doing exercises in this particular way, I would have been like, well, that's not right. Like, that's not quite correct, is it? However, a couple of times we've done exercises and he's gone, okay, so this is how we do it and this is what we're going to do because this works this, and this muscle. He reels off a bunch of bloody scientific muscle names. And I go, oh, right. There's reasoning behind that technique. And this applies to a bunch of things I've seen in the gym when you talk about sport-specific athletes that are in there training something you got no bloody idea about for a purpose that you know nothing about, but because you know how to do an isometric bloody bicep curl, you think you know everything. I don't know everything. But, you know, these couple of instances for me put me back in my place internally, and I was like, oh, sometimes I look at people doing things and go, that's incorrect. Maybe it's not. Maybe I've just got no idea what their background is or what they're actually trying.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if something is dysrhythmic, they got zero timing, zero rhythm, you know they're doing something beyond their biomotor abilities. Or if somebody's targeting a bicep and that's clear, right? And they have more hip extension than elbow flexion. Okay, I can come to a conclusion on that, but you're absolutely spot on. People look at things they don't understand. They don't have a reference point to understand that they don't understand. There was a video of somebody doing a total body exercise with rotation. So I think it was like a squat to a pull with rotation. And just the comments were, yeah, that's a great way to get an injury. There's absolutely no reason to do that. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, when do we ever have to challenge deceleration under neuromuscular control in the transverse plane in real life? Except for freaking everything we do. And it's like, oh, I wouldn't rotate under that load. Well, do you walk down a flight of stairs ever? Do you take stairs? Because when you take in, you know, like ground reaction forces, when you factor in all the forces going through your body at that time, you are basically decelerating 8 times your body weight. Oh, and it's in the transverse plane because every single joint is rotating. Most of your joints in your body move in 3 planes of motion all at once. It might look very sagittal, in other words, forward and backwards, but it's absolutely not because most joints just don't function that way. So it's like, yeah, there is reason for that. And if you don't train, I doubt that person was doing that exercise because the execution, quite honestly, it looked kind of beautiful. It was fast. It was explosive, but it was absolutely beautiful. That person didn't start there that day. That person worked up, to that.
I've just started heavy lifting and I'm loving it. And I did deadlifts last night and I did which most of the time, like I have to use grip strength, by the way, super shit. How much does that suck? But anyway, I wanted to do a PB lift, so it was quite a heavy one, but for this particular, and it was really heavy for me. And I've only been doing this for about 4 months. So in terms of having a lot of, like, I feel my form. I'm really comfortable with my form. I feel really good. But I also know that there's not been a lot of time that I've been doing that. So I'm also really careful. So and Harps is the same. It's like we're not, you could do more than that, but you're not going to, because we're babies. But I lifted that
you're
one.
Smart and you understand like a proper logical progression scheme.
Yeah.
Unlike some people on this podcast.
That tear their bicep bloody tendon off, or pec. What was it? Pec.
Back. Yeah.
I have torn my shoulder before in boxing. It's cool. But
progressions for pussies.
Yeah, but it was like with my deadlifts, I feel like, this is my interpretation. There's a bunch of deadlifts. I'm still a baby at all of them, but I feel like I do a fairly straight-legged version, a kind of a bit of a, what are they called? Romanian. Yeah, Romanian deadlift. And I tried to, I thought about reprogramming, because it sounds like normal deadlifts are a lot stronger when you get more quad engagement. But when I did them on lighter weights recently, I just felt they did not feel nice, and they did not feel nice for my back. Whereas with the Romanian, my back feels really great. I never feel strain in my back. So it feels like if I'm going to relearn that, it's going to take a really long time.
Hey, where do we get all these names from? Like, did they ever do more of a straight-legged version of a deadlift outside of Romania? Like, did it really originate there? You've got the Romanian deadlift. You've got the Turkish get-up, which is really odd, because the Turkish get-up, it comes from the same people that created the Ottoman Empire, an entire empire filled with lounge furniture for some really strange reason. So was it like they were just lounging around and they just got really deconditioned and like, holy shit, I think it's about time to get rid of these Ottomans and just like get up. And then they like just go, well, wow, that was amazing. We should do this more often. What do we call this thing? Well, that's the Turkish get up, apparently. I don't know. I don't know how that works. That movement.
That's a really complex move, the Turkish get up. Who the hell made that up and made that a thing?
I think they had to compartmentalize how they were getting up, because they were like laying down, like on the Ottoman, really. They were there for so long. It was just kind of like, I don't know. I don't know why they were. And maybe they were holding a glass of wine, and they had to make sure that the wine did not spill under any circumstances, because it was very expensive wine. I don't know.
How many movement steps? I haven't done those for years. And I remember a trainer years ago walking me through them, but it's not something that I kept doing. How many movement steps are in positions?
Well, movements is quite a different story. But for me, I think it's about 3 for me. I am not a Turkish get-up expert.
They're weird. If anyone doesn't know what they are, go and Google it, because they're just a bloody weird. You got one dumbbell in one arm and you're laying down, or a weight or a kettlebell or whatever. And
I am much more of a fan of the Guatemalan sit down. I find it more eccentric and relaxing in nature. My
first World Vision sponsor child was from Guatemala.
Oh.
Yeah. How beautiful. Anyway, as you were.
I don't know. I'm just thinking about past romances now. So I was dating this girl, this woman, and she was just great. The only problem with the relationship, she basically hated me.
I couldn't get past that.
I mean, she just hated my sense of humor, how I communicated, and overall just who I was as a person. But other than that, we had a really great relationship.
How long was this relationship?
It was like months.
Sounds like grounds for flourishing.
It would have been weeks, but the sex was incredible, and it just kept us together. And so, yeah. And I remember when I actually did really. There was a point in that relationship where we were really vibing, and like if I ever ran into her, I would be happy to see her. She would probably pretend she didn't see me and leave the coffee shop. But like when people break up with you, it's not you, it's me. But yeah, she was like, look, it's not me, it's you. And I kind of had to like take account of it and go, yeah, okay. I can see that kind of. But there was this, she was telling me this story about when she was in South America and she was working with these kids in an orphanage and they couldn't pronounce her name. And like, so this one little girl, she had this incredible relationship with, she just connected and she always wanted to be picked up and she would hold her arms out and she couldn't say her name. So she would go, Ekika. And I'm just like, I don't know. I just was like, wow, I am definitely in this for a couple of more weeks. Definitely. Like it was the way she would tell the story in her face. And this person like was adorable. This person was a great person. It was just, like two people, like not everybody really goes together, but she was fantastic. I was just like, oh my God, I am so attracted to you at this moment.
I love your stories about your exes. They're some of my favorite podcast highlights.
Yeah. We I don't know. We should start a tangential podcast called Relationships Bobby Has Ruined. But who's got time for that? I mean, we'd have to put out like 4 episodes a week. It would be like like so many seasons. Just
Anyway, stupid people that don't know they're stupid. Back on track.
Yeah. So somehow I feel like talking about my failed relationships and okay, so stupid people who don't know they're stupid. Like, are we talking about me? Is it me?
I told you were going to be the subject of this. Is this
podcast. An intervention? All of a sudden, like Harps pops up in a window. Then Paul Taylor pops up. Oh my God, that's Richard Boyd. O'Dwyer's here. Cam McDonald. It's like, oh, the whole crew's here. Bobby, we love you, but
oh dear.
So yeah, but there's a thing where lack of knowledge is not lack of intelligence. I think it can morph into lack of intelligence when 1, it's willful. Number 2, you are convinced. You're convinced of what you know and you see your own ideology in everything, even when it's not there. You interpret things not based on how they are, but completely based on how you are or words, how you want them to be. So here's another post. Richard Feynman, who's probably one of the most brilliant minds of the 20th century, there was a quote that he had, and it said, never allow yourself to be fooled. And always, I'm paraphrasing, always understand that you are the easiest person to fool. Now, when you hear that quote, what does it mean to you, Tiffany?
That we fool ourselves.
Yeah, don't trust in your own assumptions or beliefs all that much because you're an easy person to fool. And you're the easiest person to fool because you're the one who's most influenced by your own biases. And you can't allow that to happen. And somebody writes, yeah, okay. In other words, well, first of all, you're basically summarizing and improving upon a Richard Feynman quote. You're already off to an interesting start. He goes, in other words, be confident always in every situation. And then this annoys me, period. No, that's not at all what he said. I'm just, it's almost like Richard Feynman wrote, I really love apples. And you're writing, in other words, just eat bananas. You couldn't have missed it. You couldn't have missed it any more than you did. It's like, but in your mind, confidence is the highest virtue. Be confident no matter what, even if you have no business being confident. I was talking to somebody on my team the other day who I have a ton of respect and affection for. I was like, sometimes confidence is overrated, especially when it's not substantiated by anything. It's unjustifiable levels of confidence. You're destructive. You're destructive to yourself. You're destructive to people around you. But if you're not open to the fact that you might be more confident than you are competent, well, that's stupidity. It's ignorance when you don't have information, and there's no shame in ignorance. We're all ignorant on so many things, but there is shame on dismissing information because it's not the information you want, or it doesn't align with what you already know, your worldview. That's when you take a look at a bicep curl. Now, if you're let's say you're a trainer, you're going to hurt someone. You're just some Nimrod commenting on the internet. Okay. Someone's brain might hurt for a second reading your comments, but you're not going to do much more damage than that. But you could resolve this by saying, okay, what are the questions I should always ask rather than the conclusions I should come to, especially guys doing a demonstration. Well, you're not lifting enough weight. I'm not going to listen to a guy that doesn't lift that much load. And first of all, I looked at this person. You're not the epitome of fitness yourself. So there's something else going on there. Tom Purvis was one of my first mentors back in the 1990s. And he always had two brilliant questions. Before you come to a conclusion, for who? Right? So he's talking about goals, needs, wants, and abilities, right? And what goal? So I'm sorry. He was talking about needs, wants, and abilities. And what's the goal? What am I trying to accomplish? So before you tell me how much load I should be lifting or what my range of motion is, or you're shouting, that's not a full range of motion, not understanding all the variables that affect range of motion under different loading parameters, like, what's the goal, man? I was like, okay, those are smart questions because rather than getting me to respond, it gets me to think first. And if I'm willing to train myself to think first, to inquire, I'm off to a pretty good start.
I know I've said this before, when we, in the 12 round gyms, when we would query what people's goals were and ask them how they were going to achieve that first. So then through that, also, what do you mean by that? I remember, so one example was one of the ladies said, I want to be more toned. I want toned arms, but not muscly. And okay, what do you mean? What does that look like to you? And I said, I was fighting at the time. So I was lean, I was smaller, way less than I do now. I was quite lean though, so I was muscular. And I said, are my arms too muscly? She says, no, right? So I get to understand what's your definition of muscly, too muscly or toned or what that means. And then I said, and then the next question was, how are you going to achieve that? And she gave her answer of what she was going to do in the gym. And I remember that was, she was going to do extra rounds on the cardio bike after she'd done the 12 rounds of the training, which is made up of boxing and functional strength and a little bit of cardio. And so then it was this coaching opportunity to go, okay, so here's what builds lean muscle. Here's what makes the difference. Here's what's going to change your body. This is what you would benefit from focusing on. So it was not to catch somebody out and go, see, you don't know anything. It was, what's your current understanding? Because trainers aren't around forever. You're not there. You're not the light of someone's life that's always going to be there to get them where they are. You're this resource, and your intention should always be, what can I impart and leave with this person for the rest of their life?
That was beautiful. One, that you showed empathy. Number two, you did not invalidate her and make her feel stupid. What do you mean, tone? You mean like low levels of contractile activity within a muscle's resting state? Unless you get neurological damage, you're already tone. Yeah. That's obnoxious and useless information in the very same sentence, which, if you look at it from a certain lens, kind of impressive, but not helpful. And you utilized inquiry over advocacy. You didn't jump in and start educating, and you're helping her work out, like, what do you already know and what do you need to know from me? So yeah, you're showing her how to think and build capacity. That was beautiful. And I'm sure you did a lot of other great things there as well. That I'm
and
just
then
not.
The other thing I think in that training realm, and that could be transferred to other areas, I'm sure, but there's understanding, like, where is the line for them, what they want between results and the journey. What are the results you want? What do you enjoy? And where do you want to sit in the process? So how can we, because if you want a 10 out of 10 on body composition, but you actually don't enjoy working at, let's just give it a lineal kind of number, like more than a 6 out of 10 in order to get there, then how can we find the right intensity or journey or style of training or frequency of training or eating style or lifestyle? How can we get all of that together to something that you'll enjoy and continue with, and also get as close as we can to the outcome that you want?
Oh, that is so beautiful, because you're recognizing, acknowledging, and you're helping someone to focus on what do you really want, but also what do you not want.
Yeah.
You're because, like, sometimes you'll go, well, you got to be willing to make the sacrifices. You just can't do this. What's the lifestyle? This person might not want what you want for yourself as badly as you want it for themselves. It's like, okay, I want to be healthy. I want to be able to do shit. I want to be a little bit more, quote unquote, in shape. I know that's very vague. I want to be in shape. Well, everybody already has a shape. We hope, right? It's just not the exact shape you might want. So you want to shift that. But I also do love, I do love wine and cheese nights twice a week, because that really gets me going when I'm at dinner parties, and I love that stuff. And my life just wouldn't be as exciting without those. So yeah, and never do you make somebody feel inadequate. Never do you make them feel like they don't have what it takes. They're lacking something, and they have the option of expanding or not expanding their commitments later in the future. Like what you're talking about right now, for me, this is a master class for trainers. I know we were talking about the Dunning-Kruger effect, but I think this is even more important. This is beautiful.
And it's so experiential. Like, I think a lot today as we've been talking, and we've done 2 podcasts today, one that people are listening to right now and one that people have either listened to next week or last week, whatever way it rolls out. But through it all, I've had this, and I guess it's even an example of what I want to talk about, is the idea that every single every word, every conversation, every piece of information that goes in, no matter my current understanding of it or a view of it, perspective on it, it's changing me. It's changed me. And this stuff that I'm talking about now is this culmination of information that's gone in over the years. Some of that information's been in the boxing gym. Some of it's been in my personal life. Some of it's been in, office work scenarios. Some of it's been conversations I've heard. Some of it's been books that I've read that have nothing to do with training. It's all of this information goes in, and I'd written on the top of my page before we started, because I wasn't sure if what our topic was going to be, and I'd written mind change, and I was thinking about how we try and change our minds or change somebody's mind from one thing to another, and we think it's this overnight process, but what it is this layering of information that goes in, and it goes into our subconscious, and it changes the perspective of a lot of little things, and then every now and when enough of those similar ideas go in and we see them in areas of life and I don't think it's a conscious process, but all of a sudden one day our mind is different. We have changed. I didn't learn all of that stuff in a masterclass course for personal trainers. It was an accumulation of a whole bunch of things, some deliberately learned, some not.
Yeah, well, there's so much programming that we were exposed to. But again, we don't realize it. We won't admit it. you have one group of people that believes one way and another group of people, the other, well, they're sheep. They're being programmed. But we all believe the exact same things in the exact same group. And we don't see the coincidence in that. No, we're such independent thinkers that just happen to coincidentally think exactly alike. And I'm not saying like there's not wisdom to be gained from people in groups. You know, like if I'm in a group of physios that are talking about, you know, knee mechanics, I could probably learn a lot from that group. But how you navigate through that is by being just as attached to staying in the question as you are to having the answer.
I love that. I'm writing that down. Be attached to staying in the question. Is that what you said?
Yeah. So I used to work with this guy. He works with major sports teams in the U.S. right now. He's brilliant. We were on the NASM team, National Academy of Sports Medicine, back in the day. His name is Lenny Parasino. When it comes to analytical thinking, the ability to organize, systematize, and apply information, he is truly impressive. And he said something long ago that stayed with me. He said, education is not just about answering questions. It's about provoking them. I thought, that's quite useful.
And the idea that in doing that, right, say, if you can provoke questions when you are literally, when your intention is to teach, that can skyrocket your own knowledge or impact.
Yeah.
Here's what I know, and here's a bunch of people that I've never come across before that I'm teaching it to. What can I gain from them in this teaching moment?
There's informing people, and you need to give people structure and systems and models. All of that's important because, you know, if you don't have a map of the I understand that the map is not the territory. It's only how you represent reality. But if you don't have a map, you can't alter it and learn. Like if I'm trying to get from Melbourne to Brisbane and I don't have a map of how to get there, I don't have a chance. You can't just say, well, just drive north and good luck. But even if I have a map and it's wrong, I can modify it when I get more information. I go, oh, you know what? They closed down that road. I need to recalibrate. What's another road? This road is the actual correct road, but you got to have it. So even an incorrect map serves as a model for learning. But so you got to give people that as a teacher, but to inspire people and empower people to ask questions and to pursue learning and how to educate themselves beyond you. That's masterful teaching.
Also, I'm thinking about mentors, right? We pick mentors. We pick people that we look up to that are somewhere where we want to be, and then we go and we want to get some perspective about the map. And take those people and they can tell you the exact route, but they're driving the latest bloody Jeep 4-wheel drive and you're currently cruising around on a mountain bike. So the map and the territory is going to be a completely different journey for you. And maybe you're not ready for it yet. But also maybe they never started on a mountain bike because of wherever they started in life. So they don't have any concept of how you might get from the mountain bike to the part of the territory in order to acquire the Jeep, the metaphorical Jeep, to get the rest of the way.
And I think that is really powerful. And it talks about the difference between equality and equanimity, where, you know, and when we talk about these things, we're not talking about outcomes. We're talking about opportunity. I think that's I think that's a more realistic as well as fair conversation personally, but you're absolutely right. Some people don't acknowledge that. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't strive for things. And you shouldn't try to advance, as much as your values and your aspirations.
But also there might be,
but there's an acknowledgement.
There can sometimes be a sneaky little backtrack that a mountain bike can get up that a Jeep never could.
Exactly. Like, how do I leverage this? But you need to acknowledge a Jeep and a mountain bike are not the same things.
Yeah.
So when you get to the top of the mountain, it's not like, well, we had the same opportunity to get here. No, we didn't.
Yeah.
Well, I've learned a lot from this conversation.
Me too.
I found this combination fascinating. Love chatting with you. Hope you all enjoyed this. And, we're looking forward to seeing you next week. You know where to find us. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Visit us at theselfhelpantidote.com to share your feedback, insights, and recommendations on what topics you'd like us to explore in the future.